All righty. What an amazing group of people we have here. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the BIPOC DC 2021 conference. I am Maria Manuela Goyanes. I use she, her pronouns. I am the artistic director of Woolly Mammoth Theater Company. Woolly Mammoth is in Washington, DC, and we want to acknowledge that our theater stands on occupied, unceded territory, the ancestral homeland of the Nacotchtank, whose descendants belong to the Piscataway peoples. Furthermore, the foundation of this city and most of the original buildings in Washington, DC were funded by the sale of enslaved people of African descent and built by their hands. I have to give a shout out to the brilliant scholar, Dr. Gabrielle Tyack, who worked with us on creating that land acknowledgement, and actually Larissa and Ty of Indigenous Direction that really sort of helped shepherd a lot of this, not just for Woolly Mammoth, but also for the field. And there's certainly more to be done. I was a speaker in last year's 2020 conference, and so I am really honored to have been asked to be a moderator with these esteemed colleagues. This month marks the one-year anniversary since companies and institutions made public commitments to anti-racism. And today, actually, I want to acknowledge marks a very important day in the history of our country. It is the sentencing of Derek Chauvin, and I know that there are a lot of feelings around that. I want to encourage who's ever with us to take care of yourself today. And thank you for showing up because the insights and the energy of these amazing panelists is going to, I hope, be as invigorating as I know each of them. So I know that they are. I'm really excited for you to hear from them. So today, in the spirit of continuing the conversation and community building, knowledge sharing, etc., we're going to hear some pearls of wisdom, I think. I want to remind folks that if you have questions, you can enter them in the Q&A box, and we will try to answer them if we have time. I am going to start with some intros. I'm going to call on folks so that you can intro yourself. Please share your name, preferred pronoun, a land acknowledgement if you should so choose, and where you at, and maybe something about yourself, because we are more than our jobs. We are full 360-degree human beings, and let's remember that. So why don't we start with Jacob?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Maria, thank you so much for this invitation. It's so wonderful to be in community with all of you. So I'm Jacob Padron. I use he, him pronouns. I'm the artistic director at Longworth Theater. I'm zooming in from the ancestral land of the Quinnipiac, the Wappinger, and the Pagasit peoples. And yes, right, you can read our bio and read about our kind of professional credentials. But I want to share a little bit about things that you aren't going to read in my bio in terms of who I am and where I come from. So I am third generation Mexicano. I am the son of Fred and Terry Trujillo. I am from Gilroy, California, which is the garlic capital of the world. I'm allergic to garlic, my friends, if you can believe it. Isn't that crazy? I am the mentee of the late and great Diane Rodriguez. I am the beneficiary of my first artistic home in San Juan Bautista, California, El Teatro Campesino, the farm worker theater. Without that company, I wouldn't have a life in the theater. And I'm a Gemini, and the twins definitely show up. And y'all, Mercury was in retrograde, and I was really feeling it. So I think it just ended. So that's a little bit about me. I'll pass it on over to Larissa.
Amazing. Hehani washte, machiapisto, Larissa Pastorus, machiapisto, Maschuchanga, Lakota. And I'm currently on what is called Santa Monica, California, but it's the lands of the Keech, Tongva, Gabrielino folks, and actually right on the border of the Chumash also. They came all the way down through this area. And what else? My pronouns are she, it says so in my name here. And actually my pronoun is said in my language. The way we use our language tells you what our pronouns are because the men and the women speak it differently. Also, let's see what else. Oh, about me, yeah, hi. I'm also I'm a late mentee of Diane Rodriguez. Interestingly, not artistically, but when I joined the board at TCG, she became my board mentor and taught me about governance and leadership. And she took me on without my choice, which was awesome because that's Diane. Also, let's see what else. I am here in Santa Monica with my, it's where my husband is born and raised in Los Angeles. This is his artwork on the wall behind me. A two-artist family. I'm primarily known as a writer. And honestly, I don't have like hobbies or anything. I love what I do. I used to be a classical ballet dancer, which is an all-encompassing world. And now I am a writer, which I really love. And I do it as much as I possibly can. If I could do it 24 hours a day, I would, because that's what I love. And that's kind of me. I will go ahead and pass it to Mayan.
Hello, I'm May Antio. I use they and she pronouns. Calling in from Muncie, Lenape, and Canarsie land, also known as Brooklyn. And I just want to show you my view. I live on the 24th floor, and that is the sky. The sky is I live in the sky, and it's a beautiful thing. I am the artistic director of Musical Theater Factory, and I am a queer immigrant. Happy Pride, happy Pride. I think everyone is queer because the definition of queer, which I have learned from Diana O, is a way of being that is in direct resistance to cis hetero patriarchy and white supremacy. So yeah, we're all queer. Happy Pride to all. And I am a child of immigrants who are innovators and educators, who I am fully and grateful to. So I'm going to pass it on to Camila.
Great. Hi, everybody. I'm Camila Forbes. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I'm the executive producer of the Apollo Theater in Harlem, New York. I am currently in Brooklyn, New York, both of which sit on the land of the Muncie Lenape peoples. I am a theater director and film director and producer. Let's see, I am also the daughter of immigrants from Jamaica and moved to this country when I was born in this country, but lived in Jamaica when I was younger. I am a mother to Satya Lynn Fenton, who is a 5-year-old young, bright little girl. I am excited to be here in conversation and community to talk about the expansion of imagination and creating worlds in which we all feel seen.
Amen. Thank you for that. I did most of my introduction, but I do want to share that you won't read in my bio that I am the daughter of Violeta Antonia Perez, La Flor de las Mujeres. I am the sister of Cristina Goyanes and Inessa Selditz. And I am a passionate advocate for the theater and artists, and just thrilled to be in a room with these amazing people. So let's get started. So the first question that I would love to toss out to you all, whoever wants to jump in, please don't be shy. What did people not tell you about what it takes to get and keep a seat at the table? You all have had to navigate so much throughout your careers, your illustrious careers, and representation at leadership levels is persistent and stubbornly low. And so statistically speaking, the people sitting here have a very small percentage of leadership positions in the theater and film industry. And so what do people not tell you about what it takes to get and keep a seat at the table?
I'll start. What I think people didn't tell me, but figured out on my own, is you've got to build your own table. One thing I didn't mention is that my career started as a director and producer by the founding of my old organization, which just celebrated 20 years, which was originally entitled the Hip Hop Theater Festival, now renamed High Arts in New York City. And, that was a moment in time in which myself, colleagues, like-minded artistic comrades in the field built our own community institution and named it for and by ourselves. It was an opportunity to be seen because, quite frankly, theaters were not producing our works. We're not producing generational works that were reflective of us. We're not producing on scale, on mass, works by Black artists, Black and Latino, BIPOC artists en masse that were reflective of works that we wanted to see reflective in front of us. So we built our own world, and I think that was my training ground in how to curate. That was my training ground in how to produce. That was my training ground in grant writing. It was my training ground in organizational development, strategic planning, which was our own little community. And then obviously finding other mentors along the way. But that's how it started. And from that birthed, I think, the rest of my career and other pathways and offshoots. But I've got to give credit to my community and my peers sitting right next to me became that pathway. And so that's something I didn't know.
That really resonates to me, because actually I feel that way about most of you in terms of the community here, and opening up, expanding the table, creating your own table. What else? Mayanne, Larissa, Jacob, what do you want to share that you had to navigate? Jacob.
I think just to riff off of, Camilla, just amen to all of that. And one of the things that I do when I'm a part of these conversations, when you can be in community with other really inspiring folks, is I always have a journal and where I write down because there are just so many sound bites, right? So Camilla, when you said the expansion of our collective imagination, like, it's just like, I'm like, yes, it's just so brilliant. What a gift. But this idea of what it means to build your own table, like, I think that they don't tell, that really resonates. They didn't tell me that. And sometimes you have to make your own table, as difficult as that is. So when I arrived in New York City in 2013, the question that I asked myself was, where are the Latinos? We're like in a city of Latinos. Where are the Latinos on our stages, on our screens, on the TV? I didn't see them. And so I was like, I'm going to then build something with my community to really amplify the voices of Latinx writers, specifically called the Sol Project. That was the initiative that I started, and that Maria also helped to birth that initiative. The other thing that they don't tell you is that it's the long game, that I think the patience and the tenacity that you have to remember as you navigate all of this. And then the other thing that they don't tell you, and I talk to my students about this a lot in terms of how you build opportunity for yourself or how you build that table, is remembering the importance of relationships. We are in an industry that is relational. So, and I think that is true across. Like, I think this is actually where film and television and theater are actually quite similar. I did take a detour after I left the public theater and went and worked for HBO and Warner Media. And that was the thing that I learned quickly, was that you can have all the expertise, you can have all the technical skills, right? You can be a brilliant cinematographer or, actor, but the importance of what it means to be in relationship and how you tend to your relationships is so key that they don't tell you. And I think the more that we can remember that we are relational, right? Let the power of our work be guided by the power of our relationships, I think is really, really key.
Shit, I'm writing that down. Okay, pen out for that one. Jacob, knowledge bomb. Mayanne, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and I will say this. I feel like these things are spoken, but I didn't really believe it until it smacked me in the face, right? So like I feel like there are so many elders who have spoken and have spoken again and again and again, but that their voices have been silenced, right? So like I think that these are things that I have heard, but it's like really is it really that bad? And yeah, it is. And then I was like, oh, that's why it feels like I didn't hear it before, but I needed to hear it again because the dominant narrative pushes it so far aside, right? So I'm just really grateful for this question because it's like making me think about like what are things that when I hear this question, I think, what did I feel like a slap in the face in the body that I was like, oh, and then I needed to find community to hold with me. And that was like, no matter what, I am still the token. Like I feel like it's like, oh, okay, well, you know, here, like no matter how like badass of like slamming that interview, it's like the person who would have inherited the job, who is a white cis man, is like, well, you know, they got it because they're the minority, they're the choice that needs to like run right now. You know what I mean? And that it's actually about that my place of all the things that I bring as a holistic person actually doesn't have space because it's been like, well, they're getting it because of this now. And that is such an insidious thing that I've had to do for my own psyche to go, did I just get it because I was Asian now that things are changing? And what that does to people in positions of power of like making sure that I don't feel like a fraud because I've been the token or the perception of that. And I just want to say, like, I think that it goes on so many different levels. It goes on that level of the other person or the white leader who steps aside, who now it's like, I have made space for you, as opposed to like this is a living, breathing organism of our society in which we are all coming together to actually move us towards collective liberation. And who is up for that job, right? Like the language of it is all to the point of like, Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, you know, like we're still caught in that white saviorism in all of these different levels where really there should be process of people leave positions and there is a search. It's still not happening across the board. Or even if there's a search, there's a lot of embedded things there that are not as transparent as we would like them to be, and the intentions are not as towards change as they say they are. So those are things that I'm like, with that. I think the other thing too that they don't tell us or that we are not hearing enough of, but that many people are starting to say from our communities is abundance versus scarcity and where we can be inside of that. And I think that the scarcity mindset is so embedded in us like multiple times. And every time I like hear someone talk about abundance, I feel like, please, I need to be in that shower for like another 10 years because of the ways in which we have truly been pitted against each other, truly been indoctrinated into a culture of imperialism, colonization, and capitalism, and how we can heal from all of those things and reimagine a new way is like that's where I'm listening. You know, that's where I'm like, please say more of this. Please, let's heal.
Yeah, and especially with this pandemic and coming out of this pandemic, right? Talk about scarcity and abundance. Like, you know, I have nothing but fear actually moving forward that things are going to revert. And so, yeah, I'm trying to keep my optimism, but it's conversations like this where we actually name some stuff that I go, okay, I can walk this journey with, you know, because I know I'm walking it with all of you. Larissa, do you have something that you want to share and add to the conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, I'll just offer an Abraham Lincoln alternative statement. Abraham Lincoln did kill thousands of Dakota people in Minnesota. So we can use that instead and give him something he can be attributed to, honestly. And he can have all the credit. It's fine with me. Yeah, I say about getting to the table, it's funny, man, because I started in Hollywood. I was in film and television first, ran away to theater, and then I'm now back in film and TV pretty full time and theater. So I would say, yeah, hilariously. So what I learned early, which is great, about getting to the table is embracing the token. Like nothing gets you into a room in Hollywood like being an attractive Native American woman. That will get you into rooms I had no business being in, and I was like, great, I will play up all of that because I know I have the skill when I get into that room to stay in that room. I'm thrilled. I'm always like, yeah, I will use whatever tokenism I can to guilt people into letting me into that room 100%, because I know when I get into that room, I'm going to take that room and I'm going to make it my own. I'm going to get into the TCG board. I'm going to become the vice chair. I just got on Polaris Horizon board. I'm already vice chair. I'm going to, take over these places. So I'm like, fine, token me to death. And yes, I will guilt you into using all the tokens I can play to get me in that room, because I know I'm good enough to be there. And so yeah, I'm all into that, which is hilarious. That when I hear people be like, oh, they're letting me in because you're Native American, I'm like, yeah, they are, and they should. They absolutely should let me in because I'm Native American, because they're on my land. Yeah, keeping a seat at the table. I will say, I think the biggest thing that people don't tell you is one, yeah, I will say lateral violence is a real problem within our BIPOC communities, and I've experienced it endlessly. Every single achievement I have, there are your former allies, many of them will show up and try to tear you down quickly, which is really sad. Instead of placing it on the systems and the people that were there before us, we place it on each other, which is depressing. And I'm still struggling with that daily. And so it's just going to be there. And so I hate to sound like a pessimist, but it's true. And so I think it's important for us to be aware of it and start helping each other put our anger onto the right people, not each other. Also, you're always starting over. That's something I'm learning. As I keep moving up through board positions, I'm just contemplating joining another massive, political organization and in theater. And you start over every single time. So you think, oh, okay, I've done enough, I've educated, they want me in, they get it. They don't. You start over, re-educating, doing all the emotional labor, all of those things. It never, I will say for me, it's never gotten better. I keep moving kind of higher into larger or more influential organizations, but then I start over every time. And so you start over again and make the choice, is this worth my time, to my talent that I know I'm bringing into the room, to do all these things, to do this labor for these folks. And that's something you have to decide. I was just talking to my mentor right before we're on, and she's like, you got to decide, like, is it worth it? Are they worth your talent? And also, is it can be fun? Like, there should be fun. And if it's not fun, then maybe, reconsider. So, yeah.
I love it. A really amazing woman, Chanel Ward, said, sometimes you don't need to, like, even though you can fix it, sometimes it is not worth your energy to go ahead and do that. Let them do it on their own. And I've struggled with that, even though I know how to, I would know what to do, sort of holding my, actually stepping back and saying, like, no, you actually have to figure this out. And I have to actually hold myself, actually sort of, care for myself in this moment. It's so difficult because it resonates with me that starting over all the time with the same people over and over again. I thought we were past this. What's going on? So this is a great segue, Larissa. Thank you for that. In terms of what's working, what's not working, right? Again, we're emerging, we're coming back from a pandemic. I just shared, I am really nervous. I am really anxious about it. I don't actually know what progress has been made besides a lot of discussion and talking. And so I'm curious to know from you all, what from your vantage point is working and what is not working. Who wants to take that first? Yeah.
I can start and see. I think that for me and for the organizations that I'm affiliated with, Long Wharf and the Soul Project in New York, I think we're still in that place of discovery, Maria. I think it's such a beautiful question. What's working and what's not working? One of the things that we keep coming back to is something that the playwright Luis Alfaro shared recently. He said, the great pause has become the great possibility. And so this idea of how do we actually really use this time of pause to conjure all that is possible? And I want to spend more time there. I think I'm really wanting to spend more time there. I think both for Soul Project and Long Wharf, before we come kind of charging back. So that's the thing that I feel like I'm really trying to reflect on. And again, I think it goes back to the importance of relationships, moving at the speed of trust, which is something that we also talk a lot about. Just a couple of things, though, that we are doing specifically at Long Wharf Theater, which is the company that I run here in New Haven, is continuous training. So like one of the things that feels really important for our community, for our staff, for our board, for our artists, is having shared language around how we actually want to move through the world differently and how we want to center anti-racism, inclusion, how we celebrate difference. So we offer a lot of conversation and training. That's been really transformational. The other thing that's working is we're doing a lot of healing work. We have reached out to an organization called One Village Healing here in New Haven. It's run by a wonderful activist. Her name is Hanifa Washington, where she's come in and actually has led the staff and artists through a series of experiences where they can let go of what this pause has been, because it's also been a pause of trauma. So how do we let go of our trauma? How do we have a space to really unpack as a community what we've been through? And to Mayan's point, what does collective liberation look like? We can't have liberation until folks can really let go and speak their truth and actually unpack trauma. And that's shit that like we weren't really talking about, right? Like when I reflect on the theater companies that I've worked at, or when I reflect on my time at Hollywood, like there was no conversation about liberation, collective healing, unpacking of trauma, systemic racism, structural racism. So I feel really grateful that there is becoming a shared analysis. And the more that we can have a shared analysis, we have to be critical lovers of our institutions. This is something that the People's Institute of Survival and Beyond talk about a lot. PSAP, they're based in New Orleans. Let's be critical lovers of our institutions. And you can apply that really across the board. I think that is also working. And that's something that I'm really trying to hold on to as I continue to reflect on Luis's great question. The great pause has become the great possibility. What are our possibilities? Yeah.
There's so much optimism in that. I'm going to hold that. That's actually helping ease some of my anxiety about it too. It was like, maybe it is possible. Maybe it could happen. You dropped some real knowledge again, Jacob. Who else wants to tackle that? What's working? What's not working?
I've been spending a lot of time on boards and talking with boards and stuff recently, not just ones I'm on, but others. I would say, what is working is that I'm not nearly as optimistic as Jacob. Sorry, this isn't going to help you, Maria. You might want to not listen. But I will say they know that they should care. And they know that they need to appear to care. And that's a big change, I will say. I talk to a lot of trustees through TCG. I go to a lot of trustee events and talk to them previously and now through other organizations. And so in theater, I will say, and I'd say in Hollywood also, they know they should care about BIPOC folks. They know that they have to appear to care. I'm not finding that they actually do and that much, but they know they need to. So like that's a step. I'll take that. And I will say that the biggest thing that isn't working is the rise of anti-indigeneity. The exposure of anti-indigeneity and the comfort level that we have with it is really stunning to me, especially in BIPOC spaces. But also in white spaces, as we're overcorrecting because we know we should appear to care about Black people, and we know we should appear to be concerned about Asian violence, because those have been the things of this year. Anti-indigeneity is becoming just rampant and blatant, and it's really really horrifying to see, and becoming accepted. I just wrote on Facebook about a commission I was just offered. It was it's a BIPOC commission from a theater company that's named with a very anti-Indigenous name, and wrote to them. They're like, here, well, we'll give you one of the commissions. That'll fix it. And it's like, no, I'm not. There's no way I'd take that commission. That's horrible. But you know, but it's something that they believed catered to Black people, and they commissioned all Black people in their BIPOC commission in the first round. And so it's a typical overcorrection that's happening that I'm seeing that isn't working right now. So hopefully we can level all this out though as we keep going.
Yeah, I have seen it. I have perpetuated it and have been learning to and continually sort of, again, like that be a critical lover. You know, it's just like also in my own journey as well. So I really appreciate you bringing that up, because it's a lot of folks, we're using the term BIPOC super freely, and there is no I in those organizations. There is no I in the work that they're boasting or trying to do. So thank you for bringing that up. I was thinking, before we started this, we were there was a little congratulations for the Apollo and the news of the expansion. And I thought to myself, well, what's working? I was actually like the Apollo taking over. I mean, frankly, it was like, that's working. So I'm curious, Camilla, just where you are with that.
Yeah, we're expanding at a time when all theaters are closed. That's funny. No, I mean, it's an expansion that I think we're really proud of, and it's been in the works for actually a while. To the Victoria theaters, this has been a project that has been, 15, close to 20 years in the making. And I think it's an exciting possibility of what's for us at the Apollo. We are an 87-year-old institution, but quite frankly became a nonprofit in 1991. And so this is we're in a different life cycle right now of truly being a mission-driven Black arts organization and claiming that. That wasn't always, we were Black arts because the community made it their home, but it wasn't the ownership for a majority of the 87 years. But now, as a mission-driven organization, that's very different. So our strategic initiatives, we're very strategic about, who's in leadership positions, who's on our board. And so when I look around at our board meeting, and it's primarily African-American members on our board, I've never sat in other board meetings like that before. So that's a given. So now we have a different kind of conversation around the kind of leadership that we want to play in this country, in which, Black arts has led the bedrock of American culture. But how many institutions, quite frankly, have become home for Black artists? That is the chief mission, right? And so for us at the Apollo, that is our core mission. That is our, that's the mantle that we're holding. That is something that I think that is absolutely, necessary and working. We'll be one of the first performing arts centers with multiple stages that have a sole mission around supporting African-American artists across multiple disciplines, which is an exciting thing and an exciting time. I'm excited to say that we're the only one. I'm also sad, when we're looking at that fact as well. I do think I love the idea of the great pause, Jacob, of what you're talking about, because I think that this moment of pause is absolutely been working. I think as institution leaders, as creatives, there's sometimes we get in the cycle of doing and constantly doing, what's the next thing? What's the next show? What's the next step? But not really truly taking a pause around intentionality. This moment and this past year has truly forced many organizations, and us in particular at the Apollo, to really interrogate our own intentionality towards our goals and towards our initiatives, and really ask hard questions around what's working. I think that's happened on an institutional level. I think that's also happened on a personal level. around what's working, what do I really want, how do I want my work to show up in the world, how do I want myself to show up in the world, and you know, and embracing this notion of that your no makes way for your yes. And you know, that is something I think that, you know, institutionally we are embracing even more. And I am also, and also, since we're dropping quotes, I just heard this great quote the other day about you know, about the pause, but don't waste your now waiting on your normal. That blew my mind, and it speaks so much to this moment right now, that waiting to get back for things, waiting for the world to reopen, waiting for our seasons to restart, waiting to get back to work. And it's like, well, no, this is now. And we have to respond to the now in very real and authentic ways, not how we did yesterday, not how we did 2 years ago, but how are we responding to that now? So I think that's right now what is working, if we embrace it.
You know, what I'm thinking about, or what's coming up for me in what actually all three of you have said, Jacob, Larissa, and Camila, is back to actually what Jacob said about the relationships and how to seed those and deepen those over a period of time. I'm hearing that that's what's happening at the Apollo, and that's what you're really attempting to do and trying to seed that in the rest of the country. And I'm also hearing that in Indigenous spaces, that's not, it's, you know, it, at least in PWIs, in predominantly white institutions, it's not happening yet. And I know that, Jacob, you were just talking about creating the Soul Project for the Latinx folks, because it wasn't there, similar to what, Camila, you did with the Hip Hop Theater Festival. I'm curious, Mayanne, for you, what's, you know, with Musical Theater Factory, but also your own work, what's working, what's not working around this, and connect it, like, yeah, how do you connect to these?
I so resonate with like the what people are saying about the baseline for communication, how we talk about this has shifted. It has shifted. Whether or not it's like real, I am also with Larissa of like, is it? But I'm gonna use it, right? Like, thank you, Larissa, for that like gift of like, yeah, I'm a token and I got the goods. Like, yeah, right? They can't take away my goods, even though they make me the token. Thank you so much. I really needed to hear that. And I think it's like the same thing. It's like, okay, y'all are going to be guilty now, so I can move forward with my mission of Musical Theater Factory. We changed it. We actually put in our mission, dismantling oppressive ideologies through to collective liberation. We actually put it in our mission, where before they were like, is that language a little academic? You know, like I had so many board meetings where they're like, do we have to use the word dismantle or oppressive? I'm like, no, yes, actually we do. So we were able to move forward a lot of those things because of that. And I also feel like the way that we're getting, you know, we grew in the last 3 years last year and a half was a pandemic. We tripled our organizational budget. Right? So we are actually really growing, flourishing, because people are actually noticing that our mission of dismantling oppressive ideologies is important to the field. And we were able to receive like more funding than a lot of much larger, much older organizations than we are, because they're like, oh, okay, we see what you're doing. And I actually had a conversation with a foundation the other day where they said, we've been waiting, our staff has been waiting for your application. Waiting. I was like, what? So in some ways, things have changed in that way. They realize they're supposed to. There's, you know, just a lot more resources that are out there. People are funding things like Art Equity, which is doing amazing work for the BIPOC Leadership Circle, which I was a part of. They are giving us funds to say, please take care of yourself. Here's a grant of $250 to take care of yourself. Get a massage. You know, there are like levels of care that are arising from the knowledge of what it takes to be in the struggle. And so I'm just so abundantly grateful for all of those things that are happening. What is not working to me is I see a proliferation of the return to nostalgia. I see it in the ways in which, like, I see like, oh, This play is coming back on the West End. Oh, what is this big theater coming back with? Oh, is it Shakespeare again? Oh, what are you coming back with? What are you coming back with? And I see that sort of like fear of like, well, they're not going to be interested in this, so we have to go do what we always know. And it's that addiction to nostalgia, right? That I can see like all around me. And I think the questions I'm having are, how do we move from consumption to communion? How do we change the artist, the audience impulse of like consume a ticket and consume art to like communion with? How do we move from competition to collaboration? I mean, Maria, I think what you're doing at Woolly is phenomenal. I feel like you partner with so many amazing people. I feel like you're exemplary in collaboration as opposed to competition, even though you're also a badass competitor in all of the ways. And how do we think about like moving how we treat ourselves, our art, our souls, the collaborators as capital? How do we move from like treating all of it from capital to the culture of care? And like, that's what I'm watching in terms of like what's working and what's not working. And those are my frameworks of like, okay, well, if I'm going to say yes to this, is that just contributing to that same thing? I mean, no makes way for your yes. Come on, you gave that hello. What? I am taking that with me all year now. Like, thank you for that. Yeah.
There's so much that I'm sorry.
Go for it. Jump in, please.
But the thing, I mean, right? Oh gosh, this idea of nostalgia. I think this is so spot on, right? That as these season announcements are coming out, as we're looking at the pipeline of what's happening in Hollywood, it's like, I'm like, my mind is blown in so many ways because, I think we are moving the needle, but I guess it's just not moving as quickly as I thought it was going to. And so I just think that's such a powerful idea. And I think that is the phenomenon that's at play. This return to nostalgia, I think, is so spot on. The other thing that just to amplify also what you were saying about what's working is this idea of like, when you lead with your values, right? Show me your budget. Show me your budget. I'll show you your values. And so the fact that you man, have been so clear about what you're trying to do at your institution, that the money will find you, right? That funder was like, actually, there's real alignment. We've been waiting for your application. The same thing happened at Longworth Theater. When I said, we are going to be a radically inclusive theater company, we are going to center radical care. We are going to really think about community care. We're going to be a space for BIPOC voices and create the conditions for people of color to be seen and to be celebrated within this space. There were board members who were like, I'm not down with that. So they resigned and then took their money with them. And what I had to say to the board members who stayed was, fear not. If we continue to stay the course and continue our North Star, the money, the $500,000 that walked out the boardroom, that will find us because people will step up and say, I see what you're trying to do. Don't be swayed. And that's exactly what happened. Funders who had never funded Longworth came forward. New board members who would have never thought about joining our board came forward because they said, you're doing the work. Don't worry about those people who aren't aligned with you. So just when you shared that, it just made me think about my own experiences. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah. The fear of the word radical. The fear of the word radical, right? Like they actually said, do we have to use that word? And I'm like, yes, yes, we do.
It feels like that's like the new, it used to be, we have to use the word diversity. Now we can use the word anti-racism. Like it was really difficult to use the word anti-racism for a while there. And now everybody's got an anti-racism plan. It sort of is like, okay, so care, radical care, that kind of idea, radical self-care, thinking about that. It's just fascinating how it moves, the needle moves. But then sometimes, it really does go back to that it was better before kind of BS.
Well, and also this idea of diversity. Diversity does not mean that you have inclusion. So one of the things that my mentor said is diversity is a fact. We are a diverse country. We are a diverse industry. Inclusion is what you do with that fact. right? So, yeah.
It's also about a culture, right? So you can hire people and have diversity and sort of be in your numbers, but if you don't have an inclusive culture, you're not reaping the benefits of actually having all of these people in the same room together, and what magic can happen from that. I'm curious, Larissa, you mentioned lateral harm before, and I was thinking about what conversations do we need to have that aren't being had, and that is one that really came up for me. Also, the conversation around anti-indigeneity. I'm curious how you all would answer that question. What are the conversations that we need to be having that aren't being had?
Yeah, one of the things that I'm actually talking with Art Equity, we're talking about starting some conversations around the term reparations, and because that's turned into, unfortunately, some really ugly exchanges between communities that need to be lifting each other up and supporting each other. So we're having a lot of talks about how do we, recognize two communities, Indigenous in this particular, there are others, but particularly rising to the top right now are Indigenous and Black, and they're both dealing with like so much intergenerational trauma around the idea of that word, and 1,000 other things, obviously. But then how do we help like heal that so we can move forward in that word together, as opposed to I've seen some horrible BIPOC Zoom rooms recently with just screaming and yelling and hurting each other, and been involved in a few myself, as far as online like exchange of people, just gotten so contentious so fast, because we're hurt people, and so that's a big one that we're just kind of a lot of folks are thinking like, how do we start to help to heal each other and have these conversations so that we don't just like, because what's going to happen if we all just attack each other. The white folks are going to say, never mind, we'll just keep this because it's been going fine for us so far and we don't want to get in the middle of all this, and we're just hurting each other, so let's not do that. But that's a big one. I know that a lot of folks are trying to, I'm in the Art Equity group. There's other groups I know that I've heard of. They're all trying to figure out how do we start having these conversations and help each other work this out without hurting each other, and get everybody the stuff, right? Let's get all the stuff back. And so how do we make all those things happen? I think that's kind of a big one right now.
Thank you. Anybody else who want to share what are either response to the lateral harm conversation and moving towards repair, or conversations that you feel like aren't being had that still need to be had?
I would just offer, Larissa, when you mentioned that, like that in terms of what's not working, I was really struck by my experience as a new artistic director, right? As an executive leader of color navigating a predominantly white institution. I really thought that the people I was going to be supported by and nourished by were going to be the other people of color on staff. And that hasn't always been the case. And that was shocking to me. I think I'm just trying to make sense of that. And what is that about? Like, I don't feel like I have an analysis around what's, when you say like, we've been through so much, there's a lot of pain and there's a lot of trauma to unpack, and why we unpack it with each other rather than like, I don't know. It's just been, that's been, because I get the question a lot, like, how's it going? Do you love it? Do you hate it? What are the discoveries? And this is the one that I reflect on almost always. I go, man, oh man, the way in which we cannibalize each other, the lateral harm has been so profound. It's just, and so just thank you. I just want to thank you for naming it, because I think if we don't name it, then we can't make space to talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah, internalized racism and patriarchy and misogyny, it goes so deep. And I think it's something that I'm like inside of and I perpetuate, and I want us to talk so much more about what that means when we have been ensconced in the white gaze and the male gaze, and what does that actually mean for how, as we ascend in power, especially, we adopt the same things that we have learned, and how we have learned to operate inside of that, and then how do we perpetuate or not perpetuate it. And I think that there is something, I don't have an answer to it. I think that what I'm really trying to do right now is to listen more deeply. I don't get involved in arguments online because I make no judgment about that. I actually am very grateful anytime someone expresses something so I can listen and learn. And I see a lot of that, and I think also about the ways in which interbeing is very much a part of my practice. And so when I'm thinking about it, I think about like, may all beings, like how do we actually have less of the us versus them? How do we actually like take those down? Because the more we're able to sort of like make all those separations, the more that groove of behavior is there for us. And that is also saying like the spaces that I hold that are all Asian, the resilience that I find there, the organization that we are able to run with has been of utmost value to me and that benefit. So I'm certainly not saying let's not do any of that. But I think it's about the way we move in the world, and we understand that we're all dependent on each other, and that if like you are not free, I am not free, and how we can sort of move with care and love in that matter.
Love that. Camila, do you want to add anything resonating for you?
Yeah, I mean, what's been really interesting is as I'm listening, I think about and simply and also something that you just said, Jacob, around and Megan, you kind of just touched on. I've been really intentional. I am at a predominantly Black institution, right? Mission driven. I attended a Black institution for school intentionally. And what that has allowed me to do is really lean into spaces in which, yes, our race was not our factor, but we really got to realize that, but there's not a homogeny around thought. I recognize that in my own institution. And, at times we wrestle with that, as you talk about, Jacob, around that sort of support and alliance that you may not see. But how do we lean into, and a big part of our conversation, I've been leaning into some quotes actually by, teachings of Adrienne Maree Brown. I know we talked a lot about earlier with emergent strategy, and she talks about in nature, how some of the most healthiest bio ecosystems are the most diverse. How do we embrace, and this is a big conversation in my institution, has been the embracing of multiplicity of diversity of thought. Now, obviously, that's a very specific thing as how we define it in the Apollo. But that has been something that has really been resonating with me and how we wrestle in with the layered of Black identity, that there is no singular Black identity at all, global or national or citywide. So we constantly have to wrestle with that and push against that and explore that. Yeah, so those are the things I think that's really kind of resonating with, I think, at this point in the conversation. For me.
I really appreciate it. And I love you naming Adrienne Maree Brown, because I was going to actually ask for a lightning round from you all of tools and resources and learnings A lot of knowledge has been dropped here. Jacob mentioned PSAB, the People's Institute for Survival and Beyond. We've got Adrienne Marie Brown. I'm going to call on you, lightning round. What's the first thing that comes to your mind that you want to share? Make sure that you lift and amplify in this space. Mayanne, you're first.
I'm taking a class right now from the Barry Institute for Buddhist Studies called The Dharma of James Baldwin and Audre Lorde.
Love it. Awesome. Larissa.
Yeah, I mean, we've already said it, but I'm going to say it again. For me, art equity was life-changing. Anytime you can take anything with Carmen Morgan, those folks, in understanding my superpowers and knowing how to use them. That was the biggest thing that she gave me.
Thank you, Jacob, for putting this stuff in the chat. Do you want to add one?
Just to amplify something Adrienne talks about in her book, Emergent Strategy, when you are gathering a group of folks, don't have an agenda. Say you're the agenda. What is the critical conversation that only this group of people can have, right? There is so much wisdom when you bring people together. I use that every day in my work as an artist and as a director.
Mayanne just put Holding Change. I've got it right here, is the new book from Adrienne Marie Brown. Please grab it. Camila, give me anything else you want to add?
Yeah, since we're on Adrienne Marie Brown, I'm going to call out her other book, Pleasure Activism, right? And something she says in that book is, excess does not lead us to pleasure of the collective. That is something that I live by, breathe by, and walk by, because it's something I think we always have to acknowledge, living in a capitalist society where we believe the win is excess. I get more, I win, when actually that's absolutely not the truth. Excess does not lead us to pleasure.
Oh my Lord, I was not writing as fast as I needed to for this conversation. I so appreciate you all being here and showing up today. In the last 3 minutes, I want to open up to just say, is there anything that we want to say to each other as we end? This is the last of the panels for the BIPOC DC conference for 2021, and you all are so brilliant. Is there anything that we want to say to each other?
I just want to thank you all for your incredible leadership in the entirety of your careers and your lives. I see it reverberate throughout. I sit at your feet, and I am truly grateful for everything that you're doing, because it brings such light to all of us. Just thank you so much.
Ditto.
I just want to thank you, Maria, for bringing us together and for curating such, just such an amazing experience. And just, we go way back. And so I'm always grateful that when I get to be in spaces with you, and to, Mayanne said it, the work that you're doing at Wooly and the way that you're helping to transform that community is really inspiring. So I feel very lucky that I'm on the path with you. So we're making the path together.
I mean, that's what I was thank you for saying that. And also that's what I wanted to say is let's keep making the path together, my friends, and whatever you all need from me, certainly just as from my eye place, I'm here to support and be there, and get better and grow, in whatever ways that we all need to together. Larissa or Camila, is there anything last final thoughts?
I was just going to say thank you too, and that I hope I'm wrong. I'd love nothing more than to be really wrong. It's funny because before, when they asked about advice to young folks, I'd be like, it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to change and get better. It's okay to do it really wrong. I did so many things wrong in my early career, so many things. I did hurtful things. I did terrible things. But I'm growing and I'm changing. And I hope I'm wrong about some of the things I said today. I look forward to seeing you all soon.
I appreciate it. Camila, last.
This is just exciting to be sitting with you guys and seeing your faces and hearing your thoughts, and even just a reminder, there's so much that I think we have, we've been living inside a world that someone else imagined, right? White supremacy has imagined. But now it's our responsibility to build a future that will emerge from our own imagination. So just thinking about, so thank you for this space, and thank you for time to think and bounce ideas and live in this beautiful thoughts. Thank you.
Yeah, let's build that future together. That's to all of you, but also everybody who has joined us. Let's build that future together. Thank you so much for coming to the BIPOC DC Conference 2021. That's a wrap, y'all. I appreciate you all. Take care and take care of yourselves.